28-year-old Bryan Kohberger was arrested in North.
Bryan Kohberger is
For Bryan Kohberger, the man accused of.
Bryan Kohberger, of course, is awaiting a preliminary hearing.
Currently, Bryan Kohberger served at Bryan Kohberger's car.
How y'all doing today? Good, good. Just look at your driver's license real quick, like this. He's right up on that van, man.
The 18-page affidavit now released from authorities shows what led investigators to arrest Bryan Kohberger.
Hi, hello everyone. Welcome to the channel. I'm Cheryl. This is True Crime and Other Stuff. Thanks for being here, where I like to bring you the facts about true crime, the missing, current events, or anything I find interesting or important. Today, we're going to talk about Bryan Kohberger and the Idaho 4 case. Some of this might be new information for some of you, and some of it might be a little old. So, first I'll show you the text messages, and then we'll go into the 911 phone call, and then there's some shocking development we'll talk about. All right, let's take a look at this video first.
Students who were stabbed to death in 2022. Haunting messages from the two surviving roommates giving an unseen look into the moments of the killings. The pair were trying to reach their friends from inside that very apartment that they shared, not yet knowing that they were brutally murdered. Those texts from Dylan to Bethany reading, "No one is answering. I'm really confused right now." Dylan then texting Kaylee Gonsalves, who was killed that night. "Kaylee, what's going on?" Bethany saying, "Yeah, dude, WTF. Xana was wearing all black." Dylan answering, "I'm freaking out right now." Then Dylan pointing out she saw a person wearing what looked like a ski mask. Joining us now for expert insight is News Nation's law and justice contributor and former FBI special.
Okay. Then we're going to watch the 911 call because I don't want to watch all of that. Let's take a look at the 911 call. This is pretty interesting. Let's take a look at this.
Development in the case of 4 University of Idaho students murdered in their home. Today, more than 2 years after we filed a public records request for the 911 call, we now have that recording and the context of what it means to this case. Thanks for being with us tonight. I'm Derek Dice.
And I'm Kirsten O'Connor. We fought for this call to be released, but a judge initially kept it sealed as part of a gag order in the case. When portions of the transcript were released by the court last week, it no longer made sense for attorneys to hold it back. It gives context to the confusion that was happening when 2 young women realized their roommates weren't responding to calls and texts. They didn't know at the time that their roommates, Xana Kernodle, Kaylee Gonsalves, Ethan Chapin, and Madison Mogan, had been murdered 8 hours earlier. We do want to warn you, it is difficult to hear this.
It's not graphic, but it might be upsetting to hear the emotion in these voices, even before they knew the full extent of this nightmare.
911 location of your emergency. Something is happening. Something's happened in our house. We don't know what.
It's what they said next that could be a key piece of evidence in the case, and something the defense didn't want the jury to hear. Jordan Smith has been covering this case since it began. He joins us now with what this call reveals.
Well, the home here on King Road was torn down about a year ago, but the echoes of what happened likely won't fade for decades to come. For the first time tonight, we're learning more about the horror and the confusion from inside that house where several U of I students woke up to a nightmare.
What is the address of the emergency? 1122.
11:55 a.m. on November 13th, 2022, a young woman calls 911. Distraught, she passes the phone to another person who reveals a crucial detail in the case.
Tell me exactly what's going on.
One of the roommates has passed out, and she was drunk last night and she not wake me up.
Okay.
Oh, and they saw some man in their house last night.
We know from text messages released last week that one roommate saw a man wearing a mask and all black just after 4 a.m. The two surviving roommates were scared, even texting the other 4 people who lived in the house. But eventually, they just went to bed. By the time they made the 911 call, they only knew that the roommates still aren't responding, but they don't know why. The dispatcher pushes them for information not about what happened at 4 a.m., but about what's happening now and who may need help. This next exchange might be difficult to hear and is unedited.
Okay, I need to know what's going on right now if someone is passed out. Can you find that out?
Yeah, I'll come. Come on, Muffin, you gotta go check. But we have to. Did you pass out? She's not waking up.
Okay, one moment. I'm getting help started that way.
Seconds later, a male voice urging everyone out of the house. He's then given the phone.
Hello? Okay, I need someone to stop passing the phone around because I've talked to 4 different people.
Okay, sorry, they just gave me the phone.
Is she breathing?
Hello?
Is she breathing?
No.
About 3 minutes into the call, a Moscow police officer arrives at the home and takes over. The 911 call is over, but the grisly discovery of 4 dead University of Idaho students and the court saga that's happened since is just beginning. Several news agencies, including...
Could you imagine? That'd be terrifying. I don't know what I would do. Never been in that situation, thank God. Okay, so we're going to take a look at the bombshell developments. Okay, let's take a look. I'm interested to see this. I haven't seen this yet. Okay, let's go.
Huge. I help Amazon. Now, the defense has asked the judge to exclude any Amazon evidence, arguing that the click activity was from a family account. Well, as we know, the DNA on the knife has been a very hot topic at previous hearings.
And the court's question, good question, what does that mean? Could it mean there's more than one person? The answer to that is, or it could mean it's not Bryan because his car's got nothing in it and there were only 13 minutes to do this. The magistrate didn't get to know that.
In fact, his DNA is still on the knife sheath, though. That's the problem, counsel, for probable cause purposes.
The state also plans to use this selfie of Bryan Kohberger. Look at this. Prosecutors say that he took it just hours after the fatal stabbings occurred. And you can see he's given a thumbs up in the photo for whatever reason, wearing a dress shirt all buttoned up, all the way, his collar buttoned up, and he has what appears to be wireless earbuds in his ears. First, it kind of looks like hair when you see it, but those are earbuds. We took a closer look. And there's a hearing coming up on April 9th to address all of these issues that are coming up. And we're talking about it now. We're not waiting till April 9th. Let me bring in our guest I'm so happy to have on the program, criminology expert, professor and author.
Wow, what do you think about his selfie? Ooh, that's pretty weird with the thumbs up. Oh my goodness. All right, so we'll watch the rest of this for a little while and then that'll be it. Here we go.
Dr. Debbie Goodman and criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Joe Tamburino. Good morning to you both. Let's start with the Kohberger selfie. It seems to be kind of breaking the internet. So many people examining every little thing that's in that picture. Dr. Debbie, we're dying to hear your thoughts, please.
Thank you. Good morning. My thoughts, Julie, slam dunk, and here's why. if we were to open any college or university textbook on serial and mass murderers, this is absolutely one of these checkpoints and check marks of what these individuals do. I actually have the exact quote, Julie. I remember seeing an interview days before Ted Bundy was executed, and a journalist asked him, "Why did you take photos of victims in the crime scene?" And here's his exact quote: "When you work hard to do something right, you don't want to forget it." So I feel that this photo is so eerie and chilling, yet very indicative of this individual wanting to remember what he did. And I think it's absolutely a nod to his guilt. We see him in what appears to be a bathroom, a shower, nicely dressed, this thumbs up, a smirk, a smug. And there's, again, this sense of pride and pleasure that he exudes. And Julie, you had said at the onset, is some of this a coincidence? I can assure you, as a criminologist, there is absolutely zero coincidence when it comes to murder. This is very significant, very substantial.
Dr. Debbie, great analysis. Thank you for that. Joe Tamburino, I want to ask you about the Amazon search history and the knife that he purchased months before the homicides. We purchased the exact same kind of knife just to see what it would look like for our documentary. This is heavy. This is really, really, this is huge. I held this once before. I want to be so careful as I'm pulling it out. Oh. I don't want to yank it out. I'll do it as you're talking, Joe, very carefully, and then hold it up. Tell me, do you think the defense has a chance to keep the jury from knowing about him buying this ahead of time?
Good morning, Julie. Zero chance. That history is going to come in. And this is very common in today's world. So here's what happens. When you get into an investigation, one of the first things that a good investigator will do is get search warrants on what you've been Googling, your electronic devices, whether it's a phone or a pad. Why? Because in today's world, we all look on the internet and we purchase things, whether it's shampoo, soap, clothes, whatever it is. It tells the investigator what a person is looking for, which goes to their state of mind. So if they could lay foundation, meaning that they're able to show, based on the search warrant, that this was his Amazon account, and in fact, he did order this, and he paid for it through some means, whether PayPal account or his credit cards or something like that, they're going to get it admitted. Now, the defense could say, well, wait a minute, it has less weight because he shared this account with Tom, Dick, Harry, whoever it was. But still, this is coming in, and it's going to be damaging evidence for him.
Joe, thank you so much for that. So I got it out. Look how large this is. This gives me chills seeing this, holding it. It's so heavy, it's so big, it's so awkward in this big, giant sheath. And we know it was on the snap of this knife sheath where Bryan Kohberger's DNA was found, that touch DNA. Dr. Debbie, what does this choice of weapon say to you?
It says it was very planned, Julie, very purposeful, premeditated. With mass and serial killers, they're extremely selective about everything, about their victims, the day, the time, the location, and the weapon. And when it comes to these types of depraved killers, the three weapons, if you will, tend to be the gun, the knife, and the ligature. So the fact that this search was done in March, 8 months before the tragedy in November, again points to what we have discussed on several occasions, and that is, at least in my opinion, the level of planning that went into this was very lengthy, and I believe this individual has thought about it for a considerable period of time, selecting that exact weapon that, by the way, the military also uses for defensive tactics and training purposes. And I know there's been back and forth discussion online and social media, or what if he's a fisherman, and what if he's a hunter, or what if he's in the military? And the answer to all three is he's none of the above.
Dr.
Wow, that's crazy. And like I always say, I don't believe in coincidence, especially in true crime. So It seems like it's pointing more and more to Bryan Kohberger. See, I've been kind of on the fence, but I'm leaning towards yes. I like to have all the evidence before I make up my mind, but I'm pointing towards yes. All right, so I don't know. Should we watch the rest of this? Let's see.
Debbie, thank you for that. This is really, really fascinating insight you're sharing. We've learned something else about Bryan Kohberger through the filings. And we know, Joe, you know this. It's been so frustrating, especially for us at Court TV, trying to pull the filings and share the content when so much of this is under seal. And when we saw just the docket headline a few weeks ago about the defense team wanting to incorporate autism in some way in their defense, of course, our minds started racing. We're thinking, could this go to an intent issue? Turns out, no. Turns out the defense wants to have an expert come in and explain that Bryan Kohberger does live with autism. He's on the spectrum, and they don't want to show it to show that he didn't know right from wrong or anything at the time. They're saying he's innocent. They're going with an innocence defense. But they don't want the jury to have an unfair bias against him because of his expressions. And so we pulled out a couple pieces from the filing saying, for instance, he does not show emotion on his face. He has a flat affect. He sits very still, holds his hands in the same position, has a piercing stare. He does not show expected reactions. Facial expressions don't reflect what he's feeling. He's stiff in his posture. So much going on. They talk a little bit about his OCD, apparently he has. All of these things, Joe, they want the jury to know about, to maybe explain some of Kohberger's perceived unemotional or inappropriate, maybe body language in the courtroom.
So what do you think? You think Bryan Kohberger is on the spectrum of autism spectrum? Or do you think he might just be a plain old psychopath? Maybe that's why they're saying autism, because, you know, psychopaths don't show emotions and stuff like that. Let's take a listen to what they're going to say next.
What do you think about that? Do you think they're going to be successful explaining his gestures, expressions, posture, all of it?
Partly they will, and here's why. Well, let's break it down. First of all, in Idaho, there's no insanity defense. So we have to put that to rest. It's not about he's going to be insane or something. Second, his defense is not a state of mind type of defense anyway. He's saying he simply didn't do it. He's not saying I did it because I have autism or Asperger's or whatever it is. So it's not even relevant to that part of the case because he's saying he didn't do it. But lastly, a defendant can bring up, raise in front of the jury, things about him to explain his behavior in the courtroom, how he looks. For example, I have experienced trials where witnesses and defendants have raised that they're on certain medications that make them sweat, certain medications that make them a little nervous or jumpy for whatever type of ailments they had. And that has been admitted. Why? Because you're trying to explain to the jury, hey, this guy is sweating a lot on the stand, not because he's nervous, because he's under certain types of medication. Well, the same thing here. Mr. Kohberger, I think, will be allowed to raise to some degree that he has autism, and that could be a contributing factor as to why he has this 100-yard stare, why he's unemotional, why he's very rigid, something like that. Now, they're going to have to lay foundation for that. They're going to have to get an expert, somebody who's examined Mr. Kohberger, somebody who knows his medical history. So if they can lay the proper foundation, I think the judge will let that in to the degree to describe his mannerisms in court or lack thereof.
Really helpful insight. Joe, thank you for all of that. We'll leave it here for now.
Okay, so that was very interesting. Is Bryan Kohberger on the autism spectrum, or is Bryan Kohberger a plain old psychopath? All right, you leave comments down below, and thanks for watching my videos, and have a good one. Peace.
28-year-old Bryan Kohberger was arrested in
Bryan Kohberger is
for Bryan Kohberger, the man accused of
Bryan Kohberger, of course, is awaiting a preliminary hearing.
Currently, Bryan Kohberger served at Bryan Kohberger's car.
How y'all doing today? Good, good. Take a look at your driver's license real quick, if I could. Please, right up on that van, man.
The 18-page affidavit now released from authorities shows what led investigators to arrest Bryan Kohberger.